Monster Hunter World Iceborne's endgame can be a challenge for the best of hunters, but with the right gear and builds, even endgame tasks can easily be achieved. I'm Darcblade and we're back with even more amazing builds for Monster Hunter World Iceborne. In this episode we're going to be taking a look at endgame builds for the Gunlance. The Gunlance is a powerful weapon, albeit a little bit slow. Utilising powerful slashes combined with shelling attacks, this bulwark of a weapon combines strong defense with strong offense. On top of that, shelling attacks deal fixed damage depending on the shelling type and level, meaning that you don't always have to take into account a monster's elemental or element weaknesses, and allows for some very creative builds. The builds I tend to use with the Gunlance capitalise on all these factors, making for a wide variety of builds. Now, disclaimer for this series though, these builds are aimed for endgame hunters who have completed the main story of Monster Hunter World Iceborne and have access to pretty much all the armour and gear in the game. A large jewel collection is also desired, but if you do not have what is shown in the videos, you can always swap out jewels here and there to what you have in your inventory. Also, for those of you who aren't aware, Season 4 of this build series are for endgame builds pre-Safi'Jiiva, so anything that came after Safi'Jiiva will not be featured in these videos. But anyway, the first Gunlance build I use is the Artillery Shelling Gunlance. This makes use of shelling attacks combined with strong defense, making for a powerful build, but means that you will be using the shelling style of gameplay, meaning that rarely you'll be attacking with the actual lance portion of the Gunlance and instead just firing off the weapon instead. So for this build you'll need the Zora Headgear Beta, Damascus Mail Beta, Zora Claws Beta, Damascus Coil Beta and the Zora Spurs Beta. I'm also using a Handicraft Charm 4, and for my weapon I'm using the Magda Lahat Reforged. This has a health regen augmentation and then an augmentation of your choice, to which I've gone for a defense increase augmentation. Now as for your jewels, remember like I said, if you don't have what is shown in this video, you can swap out jewels here and there to what is available to you. But first of all, I've gone for artillery jewels to max out the artillery skill with this build. I've then gone for a sharp jewel for the protected polish skill, which is also coupled with a hard enduring jewel for the item prolonger skill. I've then gone for vitality jewels for the health boost skill, iron wall jewels for the guard skill, a shield jewel for the guard up skill, a magazine jewel for the capacity boost skill, and finally a handicraft jewel to max out the handicraft skill. The jewels on the mantles are purely down to personal preference, to which I've simply gone for hard defense jewels. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which will be 200 health and 150 stamina when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You have an attack of 679 with a smidgen of purple sharpness. You have minus 10% affinity, but with this build being a shelling build, this shouldn't matter whatsoever. Shelling attacks with the Gunlance will not crit regardless of your affinity rating, and as our prime source of damage will be from our shelling attacks, it means we don't have to worry about affinity. Anyway, you also have a blast rating of 450, and when it comes to your shell types and level, you'll have level 6 long shells. Level 6 shells are one of the strongest shelling levels in the game, and although level 7 is available, there are a few weapons that actually have that level. As for the long shelling type, this will cause our shelling attacks to deal the most damage, and the distance will be quite far. As for your defense, you have a strong defense of 1037, that is strong against fire, but unfortunately weak to the other elements. But anyway, as for the skills, you'll have Handicraft level 5. Handicraft increases the sharpness of whatever weapon we're using, and with this build with Handicraft at level 4 or above, it means that we can get to purple sharpness, although this doesn't matter too much with the Gunlance and this build specifically, because shelling attacks don't really make use of Handicraft, but instead shelling attacks will actually drain the sharpness quite quickly. So we want to have as much sharpness as possible so we can continue to shell for as long as possible. Anyway, you'll have Artillery level 5. Artillery is a skill that increases the shelling attacks of the Gunlance, as well as reducing the cooldown of the Wyvern's fire attack. Anyway, you have Guard at level 5. Guard is a skill that increases how effectively we can block monster attacks. The higher the guard level, the less you'll be pushed back when you block an attack from a monster, and on top of that, the stamina consumption for taking that said hit for blocking an attack will be reduced. Anyway, you also have Health Boost level 3, which increases our health to that potential maximum of 200. You have Focus level 3. Focus is a skill that is essential to shelling builds for the Gunlance. It allows us to perform the charged shelling attacks more quickly. You have Item Prolonger level 3, which increases the duration of buffs through consumables. But we've taken this really in conjunction with Protected Polish, which we'll talk about in a minute. Anyway, you have Flinch Free level 3. This is a byproduct of the gear, but helps prevent damage reactions from minor attacks from monsters, as well as knockbacks from our allies. You have Earplugs level 1, again another byproduct of the armor we're wearing. This prevents very minor monster roars. You have Capacity Boost level 1, which increases the amount of shells we have with the Gunlance. You have Guard Up level 1. Guard Up is a skill that allows us to block unblockable attacks. And you have Protected Polish level 1. Protected Polish is a buff that we can put over our sharpness gauge after we sharpen our weapon, preventing any sharpness loss for a small duration of time. And this does work in conjunction with Item Prolonger, allowing that Protected Polish to remain active for a little bit longer. And finally, when you're wearing mantles, you have Defense Boost level 6. This is a personal preference choice. Defense Boost basically just increases the defense rating and elemental defenses of a build when we're wearing the mantle. But as for the set bonuses, you'll have the Zora Magdaros Essence Artillery Secret, allowing us to get that artillery skill from level 3 to a maximum of level 5. So there you have it. A strong build both in terms of offense and defense, but it does require you to use the shelling gameplay style, which not everyone is a fan of. Now of course, every build has its pros and cons. The first major pro is it's an efficient build with a strong offense and strong defense. On top of that is a build that is actually quite strong when it comes to defense. Thanks to having Guard at level 5 as well as Guard Up, it means that you can block most incoming attacks. And the final pro, much like I mentioned, is that this build can be used against pretty much any monster in the game, regardless of their elemental or ailment resistances. But unfortunately, every build comes with cons. The two major cons with this build is, unfortunately, it is a little bit weak when it comes to elemental defenses. It's only really strong against fire, and this can be countered slightly with the various elemental mantles if you so wish. And the other major con, which isn't a con for everyone out there, but this build only works with the shelling gameplay style. So if you prefer to swing the lance around and hit with the lance portion of the gun lance, this build may not work for you. But regardless, this is a strong build to use, efficient, can be taken against any monster, and I highly recommend it so long as you like to use the shelling attacks. Which brings us on to the second build I use, which is the Paralysis Artillery build. This build is very similar to the build we've just talked about, but it also makes use of lance attacks and weapons that have the paralysis ailment. The goal of this build is to paralyze a monster first and then unleash your shelling attacks freely. This build sacrifices a little bit of defense for more offense and crowd control. So for this build, you'll need the Zora Headgear Beta, the Zora Hide Beta, Silver Soul Braces Beta, Zora Spine Beta, and the Silver Soul Greaves Beta. I'm also using a Handicraft Charm 4, and for my weapon, I'm using the Crimson Hornet, which is the Viper Tobakadachi Gunlance. This has a health regen augmentation and then a slot upgrade augmentation. As for your jaws, you've got a few to play around with here, to which I've gone for Paralyzer Jaws to max out the paralysis rating of this build. I've then gone for Artillery Jaws for the artillery skill, a Magazine Jaw for the capacity boost skill, Charger Jaws for the focus skill, Vitality Jaws, health boost skill, a Sharp Jaw for Protective Polish, Hardened Jaw and Jaw for the item Prolonger, and then I am also using the Apothecary Mantle that has a Phoenix Jaw and Shield Jaw. But as always, when it comes to mantles and boosters and that, these are down to personal preference. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which will be 200 health and 150 stamina when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You have an attack of 633 with purple sharpness. You have 15% affinity with a paralysis rating of 440 with level 6 long shells. And when it comes to your defense, you have a strong defense of 969. That is strong against fire, but unfortunately weak to the other elements again. As for the skills, you have Artillery at level 5 again, increasing the damage of our shelling attacks. You have Slinger Capacity at level 5. This is a byproduct of the gear we're wearing, but it is also useful with the Gunlance. Slinger Capacity normally increases how much slinger ammunition you can hold at any one time, but this also benefits the Gunlance. When you stick a worm stake into a monster that has been created through more slinger ammunition, it increases the duration of how long that worm stake remains attached to a monster. But anyway, you also have Paralysis Attack level 4, which increases the paralysis rating and build-up of the ailment, allowing us to paralyze and thus crowd control a monster a little bit more often. You have Handicraft level 4, increasing the sharpness of the weapon we're using. You have Tremor Resistance level 3, another byproduct of the armor we're wearing. Tremor Resistance prevents pretty much any tremor attack. You have Health Boost level 3, Focus level 3, Item Prolonger level 3, Capacity Boost level 1, Flinch Free level 1, Protective Polish level 1, and when we're wearing our mantles, you'll also have Guard Up level 1, allowing us to block those unblockable attacks, and Coalescence level 1. Coalescence is a buff that kicks in when we remove an ailment or blight from our hunter, increasing our raw attack, elemental attack, and ailment attack. But as always, as I've said numerous times, the skills on our mantles for the most part are down to personal preference. I will say this though, the Apothecary Mantle is useful for this build as it allows us to paralyze a monster even more easily when we're wearing it. But anyway, as for the set bonuses, you'll have the Zora Magdaros Essence, Artillery Secret, which we just talked about in the previous build, and you'll have the Silver Rathalos Essence, Slinger Ammo Secret, allowing us to get the Slinger Capacity skill from level 3 up to a maximum of level 5. So there you have it. As you can see, it is very similar to the previous build, although it trades a lot of the defensive aspects such as guard and guard up for crowd control and damage aspects in the form of paralysis attack and Slinger Capacity. But as always, every build has its pros and cons. The biggest pro for this build is its efficient use of damage. Through the use of shell-in attacks, you're able to deal nice amounts of fixed damage against the monster. The next pro is that this is a build that is quite good when it comes to crowd control, thanks to utilising the paralysis element combined with the paralysis skill and apothecary mantles. We're able to crowd control a monster and set them up for the perfectly placed worm stake attack, to which we can follow this up with our Wyvern's Fire and shell-in attacks. And finally, when it comes to the pros, this is also a build that is great to take against pretty much any monster in the game, thanks to shell-in attacks ignoring monster elemental and element resistances. The only resistance you need to maybe keep an eye on is the paralysis resistance, as if they are completely immune to the paralysis element, you're better off using the previous build. But every build has its cons. Much like the previous build, the two cons for this build include it being weak to most elements out there, and once again it favours the shell-in gameplay style. Whilst yes, you will perform some lance attacks in order to paralyse a monster first, these aren't going to be the main source of your damage output, using your shells will. But if you're looking for something a little bit different, or you're playing in a group, this is a build I would highly recommend. Being able to crowd control a monster will allow you to deal out uninterrupted damage for not only you, but your entire hunting party. Which brings us on to our next build, which is the Swing Lance build. This build makes use of wide shell-in level 6 and strong lance attacks. So it's a more physical build than the shell-in builds that have been shown off already. So for this build you'll need the Golden Headdress beta, the Golden Loon Mail beta, the Shara Ishvalda's Braces beta, Golden Loon Coil beta, and Garuga Greaves beta. I'm also using the Handicraft Charm 4, and for my weapon I'm using the Great Demon Gunlance, which is the REGEN Gunlance. This has an affinity increase augmentation, health regen augmentation, and then an augmentation of your choice, to which I've gone for a defense increase augmentation. As for your jewels, you've got a fair few to play around with here, to which I've gone for mostly offensive jewels. These include Expert Jewels for some critical eye, Tenderizer Jewels for weakness exploit, Mighty Jewels for maximum might, Vitality Jewels for the health boost skill, a Magazine Jewel for capacity boost, Artillery Jewels for the artillery skill, a Sharp Jewel for the protective polish skill, a Hard Enduring Jewel for the item prolonger skill, and then finally the jewels on my mantles I've gone for Iron Wall Jewels for some points in the guard skill. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which would be 200 health and 150 stamina when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You have an attack of 690 with white sharpness. You have 20% base affinity, which can easily be 100% affinity if you're taking into account all the affinity based skills, including maximum might and weakness exploit. You have a thunder rating of 120 with wide level 6 shells, and as for your defense, you have a decent defense of 986 that is strong against fire and dragon, neutral against thunder but weak to water and ice. As for the skills, you have Critical Eye at level 5. Critical Eye increases the base affinity of whatever weapon we're using. You have Divine Blessing level 5. This is a byproduct of the armor we're wearing, but it is still useful. Like I said, Divine Blessing gives us a chance at taking reduced damage when we take a hit from a monster. You have Handicraft level 4. Health Boost level 3, Critical Boost level 3. Critical Boost increases the damage of our attacks when they crit a monster, but this only applies to the raw portion of an attack, and with the Gun Lance it only really applies to the lance attacks. It won't do anything for the shell-in attacks. You'll have Weakness Exploit level 3. Weakness Exploit is a skill that increases our affinity by a set percentage when we're attacking monster weak points. And should these weak points be tenderized through Clutch Claw attacks first, this increase to our affinity is even more. You have Artillery level 3, Item Prolonger level 3, Maximum Might level 3. Maximum Might is a skill that again increases our affinity so long as we have full stamina. Also, our stamina has to have been full for a few seconds for this buff to kick in. You have Capacity Boost level 1, Protective Polish level 1, and then finally when you're wearing your mantles, you have Guard level 4. As for the set bonuses, you only have one, which is the Golden Rathian Essence, Divine Blessing Secret, allowing us to get the Divine Blessing skill up from level 3 to a maximum of level 5. So there you can see, that is the Swing Lance build I tend to use with the Gun Lance. This is one that is focused more on DPS over anything else. But of course there are pros and cons. The biggest pro for this build is its high DPS output, utilising strong lancing attacks with one of the strongest gun lances that uses wide shells. On top of that, it's also a build that has quite a few quality of life and defensive skills. Thanks to having Divine Blessing at level 5, health boost and more, it means that all this will make a hunt feel a lot more easier than it is. And then finally, when it comes to the pros, this is a build that can work against pretty much any monster thanks to the elemental rating on the REGEN Gunlance being so low and the raw attack being so high. But there are cons, unfortunately. The biggest con for this build is its lack of skills that benefit our shield. Yes, we do have guard at level 4 when we are wearing our mantle, but it's not built into the build, so to speak, meaning that this build may struggle when it comes to blocking monster attacks. And the other con, which isn't a con for everyone, but it's a mirror opposite of the other builds. This build is a swing lance build, so players who like shelling builds may not get on with this build as much. But regardless, this is a strong build, especially if you do not like the shelling and charge shelling gameplay style of the Gunlance and want something a little bit more, well, flashy. If that's the case, then I would recommend this build. Which moves us on to our fourth build, which is the health regen and survival build. This build combines various aspects from the previous builds, such as swing lance gameplay style, but combines it all with high survivability through health regeneration skills. So for this build you'll need the Ruinous Helm Beta, the Fell Shroud Mail Beta, Fell Shroud Braces Beta, Ruinous Coil Beta, and the Garuga Greaves Beta. I'm also using an Ironside Charm 5, and for my weapon I'm using the Queen's Panoply, which is the Gold Rathian Gunlance. This has an affinity increase augmentation, health regen augmentation, and then an augmentation of your choice, to which I've gone for a defense increase augmentation. As for your jewels, you've got a lot to play around with here, but there are a lot of mandatory ones. Firstly, I've gone for Vitality Jewels for the health boost, Recovery Jewel for the recovery speed skill, Medicine Jewels for the recovery up. I've then gone for more DPS orientated skills, including Tenderizer Jewels for the weakness exploit, Critical Jewels for the crit boost skill, Mighty Jewel for maximum might, a Magazine Jewel for the capacity boost skill, Artillery Jewels for the artillery skill, a Sharp Jewel for protected polish, Hard Enduring Jewel for the item prolonger skill, and then finally Maintenance Jewels for the tool specialist skill. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which would be 200 health and 150 stamina when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You have an attack of 715 with white sharpness. You have 35% base affinity, which can easily be 100% so long as you're taking into account affinity boosting skills such as maximum might and weakness exploit. You have a poison rating of 450 with normal level 6 shells, and you have a strong defense of 940 that is strong against water and ice, neutral against fire, but weak to thunder and dragon. So as for the skills, you'll have guard level 5, health boost level 3, recovery up level 3. Recovery up is a skill that increases the effectiveness of our healing methods, such as drinking a potion or our health regen augmentation. It basically allows us to heal for more. You have recovery speed level 3. Recovery speed is a skill that allows us to regenerate our health naturally over time at a quicker rate, but this is normally only for the red portion of a health bar. However, with the set bonus on this build, it can apply to the entire health bar, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. You have weakness exploit level 3, artillery level 3, item prolonger level 3, maximum might level 3, attack boost level 2. Attack boost is a skill that increases our raw attack, and at level 4 or above it also increases our affinity by an extra 5%, but this was more a byproduct of the armor we're wearing. You have critical eye level 2, earplugs level 1, again another byproduct. You have dragon attack level 1, which again is another byproduct, it's not really needed on this build. You have critical boost level 1, which can be potentially level 3 when we're wearing our mantles. You have capacity boost level 1, tool specialist level 1, which can be potentially level 3. Tool specialist reduces the cooldown timer on our specialized tools, so mantles and boosters and such. So hopefully we should have that critical boost at level 3 for quite some time, thanks to the tool specialist helping our mantles cool down quicker. And finally you have protected polish level 1. As for the set bonuses, you'll have 2 of them. You'll have the Val Soul Vein Super Recovery, allowing us to regenerate our entire health bar over time naturally, not just the red portion of our health. And then finally you'll have the Nergigante Ambition Hasten Recovery, allowing us to recover our health when we're attacking a monster, and this does work in unison with the health regen augmentation. So there you have it. As you can see, it is quite a strong build, focusing on high health regen, but on top of that it also comes with quite a few DPS skills. But of course there are pros and cons to every build out there. The biggest pro for this build is its health regen options. Able to recover its health naturally over time, or when you're on the offense, means that rarely will you have to sheathe your weapon and take a potion, keeping you in the fight for longer. On top of that, it's also a build that is quite good when it comes to DPS output, combining attacks that benefit the lance, such as weakness exploit and maximum might, combined with skills that benefit the artillery side of things, such as artillery and capacity boost, means that the damage output with this build is quite substantial, especially if you utilise the swing lance gameplay style. And then finally for the pros, again this is a build that can be pretty much taken against any monster in the game. Rarely is a monster completely immune to the poison ailment, means that you can use this against pretty much any monster regardless of their elemental or ailment weaknesses. But there are cons. The biggest con for this build is it's a duel heavy build, unfortunately, utilising lots of duels to get the most out of it. And then finally the last con, which can be amended if you so wish, is this build lacks the guard up skill, so you cannot block unblockable attacks. But you could easily swap out a duel here and there if you so wished to alleviate this issue. But regardless, this is a strong build to use against pretty much any monster in the game, like I said, and it's quite universal, having high survivability thanks to the health regen as well as the maximum guard, combined with decent DPS skills that benefit not only the lance attacks but also our shelling attacks. It all adds to a comfy build that is fun to use. Which brings us on to the fifth and final build, which is the Artillery Gunlance build. This build is very akin to the first build featured in this video, however it utilises the skills that are essential to the Gunlance. As a result, it drops some of the defensive skills in favour for effective farming. So for this build you'll need the Zora Headgear Beta, the Damascus Mail Beta, Zora Claws Beta, Damascus Coil Beta and Zora Spurs Beta. I'm also using a Handicraft Charm 4, and for my weapon I'm using the Magda Lahat Reforged with a health regen augmentation and an augmentation of your choice, to which I've gone for a defense increase augmentation. The specialist tools are purely optional with this build. As for the jaws, you've got a few to play around with here. Many of them are similar to the first build, so we've gone for artillery jaws for the artillery skill, a magazine jaw for the capacity boost skill, a shield jaw for the guard up skill, vitality jaws for health boost, a sharp jaw for the protective polish, hard enduring jaw for the item prolonger skill, handicraft jaw to max out the handicraft rating, and then finally we've gone for jaws to enhance the various guiding land skills, including destroy jaws for the part breaker skill, fortitude jaw for the fortify skill, and a geology jaw for the geologist skill. As for the jaws and the mantles, these are down to personal preference, but I've gone for iron wall jaws to give us that guard skill while we're wearing the glider mantle. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which would be 200 health and 150 stamina when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You have an attack of 679 with purple sharpness. You have minus 10% affinity with a blast rating of 450. As for the shelling level and type, you'll have long level 6 shells, and you'll have a strong defense of 1037 that is strong against fire, but unfortunately weak to the other elements. As for the skills, you'll have handicraft level 5, artillery level 5, health boost level 3, focus level 3, part breaker level 3. Part breaker is an essential skill in the guiding lands as it allows you to break off monster materials more easily, which is the whole point of the guiding lands as you collect these materials for your augmentations. You have item prolonger level 3, flinch free level 3, earplugs level 1, fortify level 1. Fortify is a useful skill but not essential to the guiding lands. Every time you faint, basically you come back with increased health and defense, but this fortify buff can only be applied twice. You also have Capacity Boost level 1, Geologist level 1. Geologist is a buff that is useful in the Guiding Lands as it allows you to loot monster materials twice instead of once, at least from high tier monsters. I'm not 100% sure if this is a bug still or if this is actually how it's meant to work, but at the time of this video it's still working. Anyway, you also have Guard Up level 1, Protected Polish level 1, and when you're wearing your mantles you'll have Guard level 4. As for the set bonus, you'll have the Zora Magdaros Essence Artillery Secret, again allowing us to get the artillery skill from level 3 to that level 5. So there you have it. As you can see, this is a build like the first one featured in this video, but is effective at farming the Guiding Lands. But of course there are pros and cons. The biggest pro for this build is its effective use of damage through shelling attacks. Thanks to having capacity boost, artillery and long level 6 shells, we're able to take down monsters quite effectively. On top of that is a build that can be used against any monster regardless of their elemental or ailment weaknesses. This is thanks to the shelling attacks, dealing fixed damage based on your shelling level and type. And then finally, when it comes to the pros, it's also a build that is perfect for farming the Guiding Lands as it makes use of all the Guiding Land related skills such as Part Breaker, Fortify and Geologist. But unfortunately there is one major con for this build, which is it's a shelling build and thus doesn't really work when it comes to swing lance playstyles. But regardless of how you feel, in Monster Hunter World Iceborne, the shelling builds are very effective, resulting in easy and efficient hunts regardless of what monster you're taking on. So there we have it, those are the endgame builds that I tend to use for the Gunlance in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Now of course there are more builds to come, especially with Safi'Jiiva, the new variants and more on the way, so there will be updated videos. And of course, as always, you don't have to use what's shown in these videos, these are just the builds that I personally like to use. So until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a hunter's guide to the endgame builds I use for the Gunlance in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.